Welcome to episode 4. Today we're going to be discussing the area around, we've got a lot of feedback based upon, particularly I suppose around Jane's weight loss story, and we've got a lot of questions and queries on that one. So we're going to kind of dive into that one. I've got a few questions here, so Jane will be our main focus today. So it is. So are you ready to go on this one?
Yep.
I suppose even still for you, I suppose today it's still kind of touches you inside. Even when you talk about it a lot, you can kind of hear your emotions in your voice and stuff like that. So we're just going to elaborate a little bit more on that one. So I suppose to kick it off with our first question, I've always struggled with my weight. I just feel now that this is how I am. I just don't know where to begin, and when I do, I usually fail.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. You talk there about how I get emotional talking about this. I suppose going through a weight loss journey, as you know, it's something that I kind of didn't talk about for a long period of time. Even in our first year of business, it wasn't something I ever talked to customers about. And I knew deep down I needed to talk about it, but I just wasn't ready. I have a before and after picture that I started to show. This time last year you talked about showing it and helping other people, because when people know my journey that I've been through, it'll help them. And you know, I didn't have a mentor when I was going through my weight loss journey, and I'm only privileged to mentor people. So I suppose with that in mind, every time I see that picture, it still hits home with me. And I don't know if there'll ever be a day that I'll be able to happily look at it and think I'm proud of what I did. I am proud of what I did, but sometimes it's just, I don't know what it is. I think it's more like you be kind of frustrated at how you got there and to a place that you weren't comfortable in your body and mind. So I suppose, giving up. Where do you start in giving up? They're two of the massive questions that people ask regarding to weight loss. First things first is, where do you start is a massive thing. For me, it's about understanding why you're actually doing it.
Yeah.
I went through a lot of years in my life where mum and dad, being the best in the world, tried to encourage me to eat the right foods, get involved with exercise more to lose weight. But I went against them. And the more anybody told me to lose weight, the more I went in it. You have to want to do it yourself. So no matter what, parents out there, maybe with their child that's putting on weight and they see this happening, it's a very, very tricky area and where to start. But the first thing is the person themselves have to start to want to do it and know why exactly they want to do it. Does that make sense? So that's kind of where to start. First things first is, if you're doing it for somebody else, it's not usually going to be sustainable.
But we generally do put other people's opinions and other people in front of ourselves. So generally, if people are generally not feeling happy, I suppose everybody's ready to start, but it's just, I suppose, where to get that first step
to actually do it. So I suppose that goes back to kind of, like for me, I would have always liked to fit in. Like a big thing for me was like that I had enough friends, or that people thought I was a good person. So if everybody else was eating junk food, I just ate junk food even though I knew it wasn't serving me well. Or if everybody was out drinking at the weekends, that's what I would do, because it was really important for me to fit in with my lifestyle. So I suppose then it's like, are what you're doing on a day-to-day basis fitting in with getting you closer to your goal?
Yeah.
Because if you're continuing to go drinking because the rest of them are, or continuing going for takeaways because everybody else is, I think finding that balance in yourself of saying, you know what, I'm not going to go 4 times a week, but once a week I'm going to join them, or have the willpower to go, this is not getting me closer to my goals.
Yeah, well, I suppose like that, and understand, I suppose, that group of doing what everybody else is kind of doing is short term, because everyone kind of moves on.
It goes back to the short term happiness that we spoke about to Dawn. Like, weight loss is the exact same journey. That like if you're saying it's like opening a business, any journey you're on is the exact same as weight loss, and I can't stress that enough. You have to be patient. Like, people want it now.
Yeah.
People want that now. So it's about being patient with that.
So you would have talked about, I suppose, even self-worth, and believing that you as a human being was good enough to achieve them things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big thing. And like I often remember, and I was only chatting to my mother there at the weekend about this. Every so often I'd go for a walk with my mum, who walked every single day. And there's one incident in mind that actually stuck, and I just had a conversation at the weekend with her where we used to go out for walks, and you know when you're walking you have a shadow.
Yeah.
I used to always focus on my mother's shadow, and I never looked at my own. And I often think about it. I never actually had the conversation with her, but I always used to say it. Mummy was always had a really nice figure, and I used to say it, someday that's going to be my shadow. And it's something that stuck with me forever. And it was like, but I never believed that I could do it.
Yeah.
I just believed that someday I'm going to be like that. But I never actually knew how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I never knew what I had to do it. And I also genuinely believe that there's other parts of my family members that of self-belief that I have around my family members that, you know, this is genetically how I am.
Yeah.
And I am not going to change.
Yeah.
That's not something I have. And I never felt, it was something like, you know, people often say to become happy you have to feel happy first. So for me, I was a people pleaser, and to help others was my thing. So I didn't really know what I wanted. I didn't know how to get it, because at the end of the day my moral growing up was when everybody else was happy, I was happy.
Yeah.
But realistically, that wasn't fulfilling my needs.
No.
I had to actually look wider at that and say, well, it's brilliant that all these people are happy and that I'm happy for them, but am I getting to where I am by doing this? And I think that was a big change for me.
I suppose, and we talked about it before, it's about having your own glass half full of self-love and all of those things. So I think that's one of the most, probably the starting points, is filling your glass half full of self-love. And even if you go into a relationship or whatever it may be, if you're coming into a relationship with an empty glass, it ain't going to be pretty. It's going to be a messy process. So I think we all need to focus on that, as you say, pleasing other people and helping other people, but you still have to have your own glass half full of.
Yeah,
what
but I think it's why. Like, I can't stress this enough. I say this in my consultation every time. You know, I'm losing weight because, you know, mum and dad just keep going on about it to me, and I'm just doing it. Or I'm losing weight because, like, you have to know why you want to lose weight and really emotionally connect to that and go, I remember years ago Dunn Stores in Monaghan had just an open floor changing room and mirrors on it. I never stood in it because I hated changing, and I wouldn't change. I hated looking in the mirror. I hated going shopping because you had to try on clothes and look in the mirror. That was like, for me, I wanted to be able to go and shop. I wanted to be able to enjoy shopping. But that going, and still to this day, you know, that looking into the front of the mirror is something that always stands in my mind, because it's something that I hated doing it, and I hated when I looked in the mirror to see what was in me. And that was why. That was one of my big whys. I want to be able to stand in front of the mirror and actually love it. Not love it, like nobody's going to say, oh well, am I amazing, but
good.
Just not feel as down as I did. And it put me down every time. So I think finding that why and really emotionally connecting to it is massive, because every time you go to do something that's not running in line with your goals, you'll think about standing in that dressing room or standing in front of that mirror, and it'll just bring you back to that time.
Yeah, so I suppose, and look at, I mean, it's not failed. I suppose people are very hard on themselves using I fail.
Yeah.
In life, you're the winner, you learn. So it's about learning and maybe just a little bit of self-discipline and not giving up on yourself, and understand that you are the most important person.
Sorry, I just, understand that feel. I failed loads of times to lose weight before I lost it. So like, I didn't just wake up one morning and decide I'm going to lose weight, and it happened. I tried all the diets. I lost a few pounds. I was going to Weight Watchers every week. I was up one, down one, up one, down one. I tried all them things. So failing sometimes, like the highest achievers out there failed thousands of times. So think about thousands of times. So if you failed twice or three times at a fad diet, count yourself lucky, because that's only the start of the journey. Do you know what I mean? Like,
so what was it? Edison's invented the light bulb. Wasn't the light bulb like his 1000th invention? He had like 980 something failed inventions before that.
He was told to cop on and stop being unrealistic. They were dreams. That's how he got so successful because he never stopped. And that's so important when it comes to fear of failure. You have to keep going all the time and not give up on it.
Yeah, cool. So I hope that touched base on that question. Second one is, Jane, what I love about you is your struggles of losing weight. Where do I start?
Sorry, can you just go again? I didn't read these questions.
I'm not the best at reading. Jane, what I loved about you is you get the struggles, so you understand people's struggles. So you get the struggles of losing weight, and where do you start?
Okay, so that's something that people would often say to me, customers that come in here. They've listened to our story, or they've heard us speaking somewhere, and they say, you know, people put fitness instructors on pedestals that love eating chicken and broccoli and exercising and gets fun out of that, like that's their life. And they don't, like, again, it goes back to how important it was for me to tell my story, that like I'm not naturally a skinny person, I'm not naturally, you know, this is not naturally the frame I am. I bloody worked hard to get there. So when people hear my story and then they come in, they go, the one thing that I have a connection with you, that you get it. And like, getting it is massive, because going back to emotions, every time somebody comes in here and tells me they've a struggle, I think I get emotionally connected to how I felt back then, how I felt when I was in that position, and having a mentor to like is huge that I didn't have. So the fact that I get it, I can then relate to the emotions they're going through. So I have empathy with them, and I can say, I get that's terrible, and I get that it's really down, and I get that you failed a few times, because I've done all them things. Does that make sense?
So it's understanding. So what makes your job easier is that you actually get and understand the difficulties and struggles that most people are facing on a day to day. And it's just about, I suppose, like, where did you start, I suppose, was the end of that question. So I suppose
my journey and where I started. Yeah, well, I suppose making small lifestyle changes. And I think for me a big one was creating awareness around food. That was a big one for me to start with, and then in hand working on my exercise. So first, I would have often talked about before, I would have ate unknown to myself. You know, if tea and biscuits, how many biscuits did you eat? I wouldn't have a clue. Whereas now it's, if I want a biscuit, it's one, and you leave the packet in the press, and then you enjoy that one biscuit. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's about finding that balance of it and knowing that, right, I've had that now, I'm not going to have it again in a couple of hours. So creating awareness, I think, was
this next question is quite interesting. That when you talk about changing your mindset, how important is it for weight loss?
Oh, it's everything. It's
so
absolutely everything.
I suppose when you were saying, like, where did you start, I suppose when you talk back about your story, you also talk about, like, the pressures from the leaving certain school.
Yeah.
Like, that you probably put in yourself more so than anyone, but you also talked about going to college and your self-talk about around that, how could you be a fitness instructor carrying weight and stuff. But then when you got into that college environment, around that sports and exercise environment, you really start to blossom and figure out you were in an enjoyable kind of mindset place, and then that's kind of what set it off for you. Is that right?
For sure, mindset's everything. I think the first thing first is like having self-awareness. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, just understanding what self-awareness is alone, regarding your choices you're making, regarding who you're spending your time around, how you talk to yourself, stuff like that there is huge thing. Because once you start building awareness, some people say, you get very down if it's not going your way. Again, that goes back to patience. So for me, a few of the things was that I would have comfort eaten, I would have been eating because I was maybe, time on my own. I often would have talked about when I was on my own, I would have ate more. I would have went to parties whenever I was coming into my teen years, and I wouldn't eat the food at the parties. But then I'd go and have a takeaway or something, like I'd go away with myself or somebody that I knew was around me that I was comfortable eating. Yeah, I was really conscious, and I wouldn't be seen eating in public, but yet I'd go home and eat something myself. Do you know what I mean? So even being aware of that, being like, shit, I do that. Like, that awareness was the mindset thing, was everything for me, realistically. Yeah,
definitely is. It's very important in everything. Like, we're very impatient. If you were to say, right, you can have something if you work hard for it in the next year, you're like, oh, a year, God, that's a long time. But
Yeah.
I'm sure as you notice, it's the 1st of July, we're halfway in 2019, like where has it went? Do you know what I mean? Like if you were to start now, by the end of 2019, you're 6 months into your journey, and you'll have started noticing a lot of changes and things which will fire up motivation to kind of get you firing in the right direction. So, and also, like, it's strange when you go into that one, you talk about time and one thing or another, you'll probably waste a lot more days than in a year
when
going
you think
forward.
of the first 6 months, like I would imagine that there's a lot of people out there that after Christmas thought about going on a weight loss journey.
Yeah.
Have they got the results they got in 6 months? So I'm saying, what have you done in the last 6 months to get you closer to your goal? And then ask yourself, okay, maybe you didn't, maybe you fall short of it, maybe you got results. If you didn't, what can you do differently in this 6 months? Because let's be honest, Christmas is just going to go like that. It's going to go so quick, like the first 6 months. So what can you do in these 6 months? Like, time is nothing, and I can't stress that enough. Them 2 years I went through to get to where I am today literally was hard work, but it means nothing for what I've had.
Just to rephrase that, time is nothing in this journey, but time is everything in a life of fulfillment and happiness. Like, life is short, but in making yourself happy in 12 months or 24 months is nothing in terms of that, because if you live an average of 70 years of age, 2 years is not a lot in that. So people say it's too late to start on one thing or another. It's never too late to start.
But I think it's about educating people regarding self-care and self-love as well. Like, everybody's able to do this. This is not like you can change anything. Like, everybody's able to change whatever they want. But the problem is, and this is where the struggles come, is they're not either willing to put in the work or they don't believe that they're able to put in the work. So, you know what I mean? That's what it goes back to. And it goes back to just knowing that you have to be willing to do the work.
They need to understand that they're not broken.
Yeah.
They just haven't been educated around self-love.
Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people need to understand, mostly.
That's huge.
You're not broken, you just need to understand self-love. I think that's a very important one. If you can tap into that one, a lot of other things kind of will fall into place.
But also, like, we talk about putting people on pedestals as well. Like, there's not a day that goes by that I don't have to I still have to work on this. Like, this is not something like, I talk about a 2-year journey. Now, that doesn't mean my journey stopped after them 2 years. 10 years on, I'm still at that. And if I let myself slip in any way where I'm not comfortable with myself, I attach my emotions back to looking at man's shadow, to going into Dunnes Stores and not wanting to change and look in the mirror. And that gets me back on track because I'm thinking about that. I'm not thinking about them 2 years that I sacrificed and working hard to lose.
So it's just like Dawn said in the podcast was with her 72 cents is kind of just her firepower to keep it going. Exactly. This is the last question. From listening to your story about your weight loss journey, makes me want to start, but 2 years seems like a very long. Where do I start and get the motivation for like 2 years time?
I think the first thing is having somebody being accountable with somebody's brilliant. And there's been quite a few people that started in the last few weeks that I actually sat with them in a consultation. I was like, you need somebody to be accountable with. Do you know what I mean? If you have somebody that you can latch on to, or can, when you're going off track, is huge. And getting to the why is huge as well. The why, and having somebody that's accountable for you to get you just started, just to get the ball.
It's very important, is it? Like, I look back this time last summer, I was about 3 months into the personal development program, which I paid a couple of thousand for. Looking back, I suppose now, a year on, I'm like, Jesus, I had to spend a couple of thousand for that. Yeah. But if I hadn't, I never would have done it, because it literally held me. Once I made the commitment, they held me accountable for it, and they tracked me along the way. Like, people ask me, like, did it work wonders? It did. I'm like, it did in one sense, but I knew everything, but I just couldn't get it out of me to actually dive into it. So now accountability is unbelievable, and that's what it was, the whole thing. And now I always look to put myself into a place where I am accountable for something, because it helps me get the best out of me and grow. So I think that is very, very important, is accountability, and just committing. It teaches you self-discipline, it teaches you loads of other little areas around that one.
And I suppose it's valuing yourself as well, like going back to what I just said, like the more I look into my personality and kind of my traits that I have and my strengths and stuff like that, I'm a nurturer. I like to care for people, and sometimes I go into consultations with people who aren't ready to take their step, and I'm given more energy than I should be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's about going, right, where am I starting? Why am I starting? And who can help me and guide me throughout? Do you know, that sort of way, to keep committed to?
Yeah, look at it. It goes into like self-awareness, self-worth. I think is a massive one. Important. Like I remember when we were in Australia in Perth, something that you had kept saying to me over a year period of time was, how come you don't treat yourself? How come you don't value yourself? You don't buy yourself anything. And neither I did. Like I probably had about 6 mobile phones at this point, and they always took hand-me-downs.
Yeah.
Like I bought a brand new iPhone 6, wasn't it? And I gave you the iPhone 6, and I took your old phone because I was like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in a building site. Yeah. I don't need a new phone. And then those things, and you kept saying it to me, and then I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I remember going to Perth, I think it was 2015, went down and bought a new iPhone, whatever it was, kept it for myself, went shopping, literally just went in and bought anything I wanted to do, didn't look at the labels, just bought it. Kind of word, and I did that once or twice or a few times, but I remember coming back home in August 16 and went shopping. It was before Christmas, and the Forest shorts, the £45 short, went in Erie shopping and all of those, and bought all those things. But I kind of realised after a year or two, but I was like, it's not actually making me feel any happy or that kind of thing. So I remember I went in Boohoo and bought a pair of jeans at €15, and I went to Penny's and bought a blazer at £20 or something. And it was one Christmas, and anyone who was bumped in was like, wow, they're lovely jeans and that's a lovely blazer. And I'm like, fucking hell, the cheapest things I've ever bought, and people are commenting on them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've been buying dearer stuff, and I'm like, I'm getting, like, it just was it was close to me. I didn't value it. So I was like, so that's when I started, Penny started dropping with me. I'm like, well, rather than actually buying and going and paying €250 on a shopping outfit, I'm like, just buy cheap clothes, because it doesn't really mean value to me. And that's where I actually started going and putting 40 quid into going to a mindset seminar or something like that, or into an exercise program. Yeah. And then I just started investing into myself. So I've invested over the past 4 or 5 years. I have adopted what you talked about, but not in the outside world, but more on the inside world in me. Like I remember going to a wedding, your cousin's wedding, and not drinking, and drove, because I was going to meet a guy the next day that was paying €120 for a program that I thought was super interesting. But what he was doing I thought was super interesting, and I actually thought it might have been a career path that I might have wanted to go down myself. So I didn't drink. I went and I paid my 120 quid, went to that and learned loads from it.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it goes down to that, having self-worth and saying that I am actually worth doing this for me. Because for me, a lot of it was, I just want everybody to be happy, and then I'm so happy. It doesn't last like that. It really doesn't. It's
not about the scales, it's about happiness. It's about
really
inner peace, inner happiness, and self-love and all of those things. So we're going to wrap up today's episode. Any last things you would like to...
No, I just think people need to understand that they are able to change. Weight loss isn't fixed. No matter what stories you've been telling yourself about, this is how I've always been and this is how I am. Everything can be changed, but you have to be willing to put in the hard work. But it'll be the best work that you've ever done, and you will look back and think it's the best thing that I ever did. And if you can do that, it's the 1st of July today, put December in your head, put Christmas in your head, you're going to put your head down and actually make lifestyle changes. It'll change everything in your life.
Definitely. Really. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. Drop in any questions you need to know. Private message them across. Everything's private and confidential. Thank you very much.